Have you ever felt completely drained after spending time with someone? Like you gave everything you had and they just took it? Today, we're asking a question that a lot of people are too scared to even think about. Should you cut people out of your life, even people you love?
Welcome to Let's Talk Real English. I'm Eric.
And I'm Lara, and today we're getting into something really real. We're talking about toxic people, what that actually means, how to spot them, and the big question, do you cut them off or not?
Yeah, and this isn't just an English lesson, right? I mean, yes, we're helping you practice your B1 and B2 English, but this is also just genuinely something most people deal with at some point in their lives.
Exactly. So, whether you're here to improve your English or you're going through something right now, we hope this episode helps. Maybe both, right?
Hopefully both. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Laura, what does toxic even mean? Like, it's one of those words that gets thrown around a lot these days.
Right, it really does. So, the word toxic literally means poisonous, like something that's harmful to your health. And when we use it to describe a person or a relationship, we mean someone whose behavior consistently makes you feel bad, worse about yourself, worse about the world around you.
Consistently. That's a key word there because everyone has bad days, right? Everyone says something hurtful sometimes. That doesn't automatically make someone toxic.
Exactly. The difference is pattern. A toxic person does it again and again. It's not a one-time thing. It's like every interaction leaves you feeling smaller or more anxious or just exhausted.
So, what are some examples? Like, what does toxic behavior actually look like in real life?
Oh, where do I start? Okay, so one big one is constant criticism. Not constructive feedback, just tearing you down. You're always like this. You never do anything right. That kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's also manipulation when someone twists your words or makes you feel guilty for completely normal things. Like you say no to something and suddenly you're the bad guy.
Yes, that one is so exhausting. And then there's the drama. Some people just thrive on conflict. Every conversation turns into an argument or a crisis. You never really feel calm around them.
And I think one that people don't always recognize is the one sided friendship or relationship, where you're always giving and they're always taking. You listen to all their problems, but the moment you need support, suddenly they're busy or they turn it around to be about them.
That's such a good one. And honestly, that one can be really hard to spot because it builds up slowly, Like you don't notice it until one day you realize you're completely drained and you're not even sure why.
Right, so for our Linglish learners, some useful vocabulary here. We've used drain. To drain someone means to take all their energy. Manipulate. To manipulate is to control someone in a clever but unfair way. And one sided, meaning only one person is putting in effort.
Good ones. Okay, so we've talked about what toxic behavior looks like, but here's where it gets complicated because not all toxic relationships are the same, right?
Oh, totally. There's a huge difference between like a toxic coworker and a toxic parent, or a toxic friend and a toxic partner.
Right, because with a coworker, you might be able to just limit contact, keep things professional. But when it's your mom or your sister or your best friend of 15 years, it's so much more complicated.
And this is something I think a lot of people struggle with. The idea that just because someone loves you doesn't mean the relationship is healthy. Like someone can genuinely care about you and still hurt you repeatedly.
Yes, and sometimes toxic behavior comes from a place of pain. Like some people grew up in difficult environments, and that's just all they know. They're not necessarily bad people, they just have patterns that are really damaging to the people around them.
That's a really important distinction. There's a difference between someone who is toxic and someone who does toxic things. One is about identity, the other is about behavior.
Exactly. And I think that's actually why this question, should you cut them off, is so hard. Because if you understand why someone is the way they are, it's really difficult to just walk away.
Empathy makes it complicated.
Empathy makes it very complicated. And speaking of complicated, what about when it's a family member? Because in a lot of cultures, cutting off a family member is like unthinkable. It's almost taboo.
Yeah, and I think that's worth talking about because a lot of our listeners come from cultures where family is everything, where you're expected to put family first no matter what.
And there's nothing wrong with valuing family, but there's a difference between family comes first and I have to accept any behavior just because we share blood.
Well said. You can love someone and still need distance from them. Those two things can be true at the same time.
They really can. Okay, so let's get into the actual question. Do you cut them off? And if so, how? Because honestly, the how is just as important as the whether.
Okay, so I want to be honest here. I don't think there's one right answer. Every situation is different. But I do think there are some questions you can ask yourself to figure out what's right for you.
Yes, like the first big one. Have you tried talking to them? Have you actually communicated how their behavior affects you?
Because sometimes people genuinely don't know. Like, they might not realize that what they're doing is hurtful. And if you've never told them, it might be worth having that conversation first.
Right, and I know that conversation is scary, like confrontation is really uncomfortable for a lot of people, especially if you're someone who tends to avoid conflict.
Which is actually a really common thing, by the way. Avoiding conflict doesn't mean you're weak. It often means you've learned that conflict isn't safe, maybe from your own upbringing.
That's such a good point. But if you've had that conversation and nothing changed, or if the relationship is genuinely unsafe, emotionally, mentally, or physically, then protecting yourself isn't just okay, it's necessary.
And I think that's the key shift from cutting someone off as like a dramatic gesture to seeing it as self protection, a healthy boundary.
Yes, because setting boundaries is another phrase that gets used a lot. And in English, a boundary is a limit. It's something you put in place to protect your own well-being. I won't accept being spoken to that way. I need some space right now. Those are boundaries.
And sometimes a boundary isn't a full cutoff. Sometimes it's just reducing contact, seeing someone less often, not sharing certain things with them anymore.
Right, it's a spectrum, isn't it? Like on one end, you have completely cutting someone out of your life, what people sometimes call going no contact. And on the other end, you have just adjusting the relationship, keeping them at a certain distance.
And both can be valid depending on the situation. I think the question to ask is, after spending time with this person, how do I feel? Do I feel energized or depleted?
Depleted, that's a great B2 word. It means emptied out, like a battery that's been fully used up.
Exactly. And if you consistently feel depleted, that's information. Your body and your emotions are telling you something.
I love that framing. It's information, not just a feeling you should push through or ignore.
Okay, so let's talk about something that I think is really underaddressed, the emotional side of cutting someone off. Because even when it's the right decision, it's not easy.
No, it's really not. And I think a lot of people are surprised by that. Like they finally cut off someone who was making them miserable, and they expected to feel relieved, free. And instead they feel sad, guilty, empty.
And that's actually completely normal because even a toxic relationship, it's still a relationship. There were good moments, there was history, there was love maybe, and losing that is a kind of grief.
Grief, that's such an important word here. Grief isn't just about death. You can grieve the end of a friendship, the version of a family member you wished they could be, the relationship you wanted but never had.
Right. And the guilt, especially if the other person is hurt by your decision or if they're struggling in their own life, it's hard not to feel responsible.
But there's a difference between feeling guilty and being guilty. You can feel guilty for doing something that is actually the right thing for you. Those feelings don't mean you made the wrong choice.
I think that's really well put. And I also want to say, if you're going through this right now, give yourself time. You don't have to feel fine immediately. Healing from a toxic relationship takes time and often support.
Yes, Whether that's friends, family, a therapist, having someone to talk to makes a huge difference. You don't have to process it alone.
So, one more angle I want to explore. What about second chances? Because sometimes people change or they want to change. Is it ever worth giving someone another try?
Honestly, yes, I think it can be. People do change. Growth is real. But I think the important thing is, are you seeing actual changed behavior or are you just hearing changed words?
That's a really good distinction because someone can say, I've changed, I'm sorry, I'll be different, and mean it sincerely in that moment. But if the behavior stays the same, the words don't really mean much.
Exactly. Actions over time, that's what matters. Not one big apology, not a gesture. Consistent, sustained behavior change.
And I think it's also okay to be cautious. Like, you don't have to fully open the door just because someone knocks on it. You can open it a little, see what happens. Keep your guard up a bit while you observe.
Right. Trust is rebuilt slowly. And that's not you being cold or unforgiving, that's you being wise, protecting yourself while still leaving space for the possibility of change.
And ultimately, only you know your specific situation. We can give frameworks and vocabulary and things to think about, but you're the one who knows these people. You're the one who has to live with your decision.
Which is both empowering and a little bit terrifying, but mostly empowering, I think.
Mostly empowering, for sure.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's do a quick vocabulary recap because we dropped a lot of really useful words and phrases in this episode.
Yes. Okay. So toxic, harmful to your well being, to drain someone, to take all their energy. Manipulation, controlling someone in an unfair way.
One-sided, when only one person puts in effort. Boundary, a limit you set to protect yourself. Depleted, completely emptied out like a flat battery.
Grief, the emotional pain of losing something or someone important, not just in death. No contact, completely cutting off communication with someone. And sustained behavior change. Change that lasts over time, not just in the moment.
Great list, and honestly, all of these words are ones you'll hear in real conversations, in podcasts, in therapy, in everyday life. These are real, high-frequency English words.
All right, so to bring it all together, should you cut off toxic people? The answer is it depends. And I know that's not the satisfying, clear cut answer everyone wants, but relationships are complicated. People are complicated.
What we'd say is trust how you feel. Your emotions are information. If a relationship consistently makes you feel worse about yourself, you are allowed. You deserve to do something about that.
Whether that's having a hard conversation, setting a boundary, reducing contact, or yes, walking away entirely. All of those are valid choices, and none of them make you a bad person.
You cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to protect your own energy. And that's not selfish, that's survival.
Well said. Okay, that's all for today's episode of Let's Talk Real English. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it.
And if you want to keep practicing your English, we have new episodes every week on topics that actually matter. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.
Take care of yourselves out there. And remember, the people in your life should add to your life, not take from it.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.